Put your hands behind your back.
Oh, right.
Put your hands behind your back now.
Oh, right.
Listen. Right.
Oh, no, wait,
Listen, you're on camera. Listen, you're on camera. Right now.
I didn't even do nothing, bro.
Put your hands right there. Put me on.
I didn't even do nothing.
That boy has just stabbed a 15-year-old girl to death outside a bus stop in London. Please watch the rest of the video to find out more. Today's video will be about the tragic murder of Elianne Andam, a case that shocked the entire UK, not only because of Elianne's young age, but because of the senselessness and the brutal way her life was taken. On the morning of September the 27th, 2023, Elianne was on her way to school, wearing her uniform just like any other day. But within minutes of her getting off the bus in Croydon, she was dead, stabbed in the neck in front of shocked commuters and classmates. Elianne was described by her family as bright, kind and ambitious. She had dreams of becoming a lawyer, but that future was taken from her in the most horrifying way by a boy she knew, Hassan Sentamu, who was 17 years old at the time. The motive behind the attack was as disturbing as the crime itself. Elianne had reportedly stepped in to defend a friend, the boy's ex-girlfriend, who was trying to return a bag and gifts to Sentamu after ending their relationship. When Elianne intervened, he pulled out a large knife and attacked her in broad daylight. It was over in seconds. The entire scene unfolded just outside a busy bus stop during the morning rush hour. Passers-by rushed to help her. Emergency services also arrived quickly, but the wound was fatal. Elianne was pronounced dead at the scene, just meters from her school gates. Perpetrator Hassan Sentamu did try to flee, but he was arrested within hours. A large knife was recovered from the area nearby as well. And at just 17 years old, Sentamu was charged with murder and possession of a bladed article. In March 2024, he pleaded guilty to the murder and was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 19 years. He showed little emotion during the proceedings. I will now play you footage from Hassan Sentamu's sentencing in court, as well as body cam footage of his arrest.
Show me your hands. What's your name, mate? What's your name? What's your name?
John.
You got any ID on you, mate? I'm looking for someone who's just stabbed someone. I need to see your name. Say something on your card. Put your hands behind your back.
Oh, right.
Put your hands behind your back now.
Oh, right.
Listen. Right.
Oh, no, wait,
Listen, you're on camera. Listen, you're on camera. Right now.
I didn't even do nothing, bro.
Put your hands right there. Put me on.
I didn't even do nothing.
Urgent assistant, King Henry's Drive near the park. I'm marked. I've got this male detained. You're under arrest on suspicion of GBH with intent. That's for stabbing your girlfriend in Croydon this morning, okay? In regards to that, you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. Not meant to make question. Something they're relying on court. Anything you do say, make them in as evidence. King Henry's, mate, just past the speed camera. You just drove past you. I've got him. No, you can't do anything at the moment, mate. You're going to be searched down section 32. Where's the knife?
I don't have
Where's the knife?
I don't have any knife on me, bro.
I've nicked him. Just help me with the search. I just hold him there. Is him? I've got his voice. I've got him. I've already told him he's searched under section 32, please. He just got off the 64 bus.
Confirm he's secure? Oh, yes.
Yeah, I've got him handcuffed. He's got the oyster card. This is our guy.
Okay, Hassan. What's the time?
9:45.
9:45. Hassan, you're under
I've already
arrest.
arrested him.
Okay,
Yeah,
lovely.
I've nicked him.
What do you need?
Just a search, yeah, just a 32.
Right.
What have you got on you?
GBH with intent at the moment. That's the details that she passed away. Just update you, mate. Hello, just listen to me. Hassan, it's murder, right? You're under arrest for murder. No longer GBH with intent.
Can I get your phone number and your medical?
Mate, now's not a good time.
Just take mine.
I've just nicked someone for murder.
Stand by for medical.
Yeah, I'm by myself.
Okay.
Right, bye.
Saved. Can we get a dog back?
On Wednesday, the 27th of September, it was an ordinary school day in Croydon, South London. Elianne Andam was with her two best friends. Before going to school, one of the friends, S, was meeting you to exchange possessions you had given each other during a short relationship that summer. She was especially keen to get her teddy bear back. They met you near the Whitgift Centre S had brought a carrier bag of her gifts to you, or rather of your gifts to her. You arrived with another boy who was a mutual friend, K. You took the bag from S, but gave her nothing in return. Instead, you walked off. The others followed. You were wearing a face mask and black gloves, under which you had another pair of gloves. Concealed in your clothing, you were carrying a large knife which you had taken from the kitchen at home. S walked alongside you, asking for her belongings. You refused. At one point, you said you didn't want to hurt her. The girls were obviously puzzled and frustrated at your behavior and attitude. They were diligent pupils and they didn't want to be late to school. As you all reached the Whitgift Centre entrance at 8:31 a.m, Elianne decided they didn't have time for your prevarication, and she ran past you, grabbing the bag that S had given you. She was laughing as she did so. You ran after her a short distance and caught her by a set of bus stops. In full view of the people milling about, you took your knife and stabbed her. She dropped to the ground and scrabbled around, trying to back away and fight you off, while you continued to strike at her. You caused 4 knife wounds on her left shoulder, her right leg, and to the right side of her neck, severing the carotid artery. Elianne received immediate first aid from Samuel Sinclair, a London bus driver who was a passenger on one of the buses stopped nearby, from 3 London ambulance service crews and a helicopter emergency medical services, all responding rapidly to the many 999 calls made by members of the public who saw the attack. Sadly, the injury to Elianne's neck caused catastrophic bleeding and would have been fatal even with immediate expert medical intervention. She died at 9:21 a.m, close to where she had been assaulted. In the meantime, you had run off with the knife, which you hid behind a garden wall. You threw away the mask and the gloves. During your attempt to escape, you changed your upper clothing and caught 2 buses towards your home address. Due to swift police action, you were arrested in New Addington at 9:45 a.m. You gave a false name and later a false location for the knife, but it was eventually found by following your route on CCTV. Elianne Andam was 15 years old when you murdered her. She will always remain just 15. She will never realise the potential of her life. The court has read and heard moving tributes to a hard-working, happy girl who lived life to the full and made life worth living for those around her. The pain of her loss to her parents and younger brother is indescribable, and they feel it in every room of their home. There will be no more holidays, birthdays, and everyday life together, enriched by her joyful presence. Her father says she was a kind, beautiful girl who was always there for others who needed her. Her mother recalls Elianne's big dreams to change the world, to become a lawyer and fight for justice. Her friend S says Elianne used to stick up for her and protect her. She has been left with post-traumatic stress disorder from watching her friend be killed. The third girl with them does not believe the trauma they suffered will ever diminish. A year after Elianne died, a large mural was unveiled in Croydon, close to the bus stop. It shows a lovely teenager full of life and purpose with a radiant smile. Its presence marks the determination of the community to declare to young men like you, as forcefully as they can, put the knives down. And who are you, Hassan Sentamu? You are now 18. You had your 17th birthday on the 6th of September 2023. You have not had the benefit of a settled and nurturing childhood and family life. You moved to England from Uganda when you were aged 5. You went back to Uganda aged 11 for a few months, where you said you were physically abused. On your return, you were withdrawn. You harmed yourself and unprovoked assaulted other children at school. A referral was made to Croydon Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services, and they had intermittent contact with you thereafter. In November that year, you had to be disarmed when you took a knife to school, produced it in a lesson and said you wanted to kill yourself. For that, you received a youth conditional caution aged 12. From February 2019 to December 2021, you were placed in foster care after complaints about your mother's neglect. She was bringing up a family of 4 children on her own, and she said that you were beyond her control. While in foster care, you used a knife to threaten a pupil who you thought was mocking you on a school trip. You were excluded and placed in a pupil referral unit where your behaviour continued to be disruptive and aggressive. In June 2019, when you had been admitted to a mainstream school in Croydon, you threatened to stab another student with scissors. On another occasion, you assaulted 2 female pupils. You continued to express a wish to harm yourself. In 2020, you were moved to a school for students with special educational needs. In May 2021, an education, health and care plan was prepared for you. And later that year, you returned to live with your mother and sisters, although you were still unable to control your temper. In August 2023, you moved to Croydon College to start a sports course. The jury heard and saw footage from the afternoon before the murder of Elianne Andam, when you were with your friend Kay in the Whitgift Centre. A group of girls, including Elianne and S, challenged and criticised you for your treatment of S at the end of your relationship. I have no doubt that you felt mocked and humiliated. This encounter did not involve any threats to harm you, but the girls threw water at you and teased you about your physical appearance and special educational needs history. You handled the situation calmly, but afterwards you told your friend Kay you couldn't let that experience slide. He knew you well and recognised the danger, telling you not to do anything dumb, not to ruin your chances in life. You did not take his wise advice. You did not give evidence at your trial. Your accounts to the doctors who have examined you since your arrest for murder have not been consistent, and even now you say the attack itself is a blur. It remains the position that only you know really what led you to take a knife and prepare yourself with a mask and 2 pairs of gloves when going to meet your ex-girlfriend and her friends that morning. But you must have picked up the knife deliberately, intending to have it available should you decide to use it, knowing that you were meeting girls who were not any threat to you at all. The law allows no other sentence for murder than a life sentence, which for someone aged under 18 at the time of the offence is detention during His Majesty's pleasure. A minimum term must be set, which does not in any way equate to the value of the life of Elianne Andam. It is what Parliament has said must be the outcome for someone of your age at the time of the murder. There is no automatic release in a case of murder, and the law is that you will spend every day of the minimum term I set in custody before you can apply for release from the parole board. The board can only direct release if it is satisfied that imprisonment is no longer necessary for the protection of the public. If you are released, then the second part of the sentence begins, which is supervision, subject to licence conditions restricting your freedom and a lifelong liability to be recalled to prison. The focus in identifying the appropriate minimum term is the seriousness of the offence. The starting point for a minimum term for a murder committed by someone who is 17 years old is 14 years. In your case, the starting point is well beyond that, because I have no doubt you took the knife to the place where you killed Elianne Andam, and your purpose was to have it available to use as a weapon. Parliament has determined that in these circumstances, a 9-year increase to 23 years is required to mark society's abhorrence of knife crime and to act as a deterrent. Nonetheless, every perpetrator is an individual, as is every victim. And it has been argued on your behalf that it would be just to mark the fact that you crossed this age threshold just a few weeks before the killing, by reducing the starting point for that reason. It is observed that had you still been 16 years old at the time, the starting point would have been 17 years. The starting point identified applies to all 16 and 17-year-olds as appropriate, unless there is a good reason for disapplying it. It is a sad fact of our time that many families lose loved ones because a young man who is aged 17 or under has carried a knife in public and used it. Any starting point is subject to adjustment if justice requires it. In my judgment, taking into account everything I know about you and your offence, it is not appropriate to make any adjustment to the starting point. I deal separately with the question of your maturity. Next, I consider whether any aggravating and mitigating features present should lead to an increase or a decrease from the starting point. I have had the benefit of reading a pre-sentence report prepared by the Youth Justice Service in Croydon and a letter that you have written to me. I've also seen the many certificates and commendations you have achieved to your credit while remanded in custody at Oak Hill Secure Training Centre. I've listened carefully to the submissions made by counsel. While there was a degree of planning and premeditation, as I've already set out, it is not accurately categorised as significant in the context of an offence which attracts the starting point identified. However, there are features that justify increasing the severity of the sentence. Your victim was a 15-year-old girl, unarmed, wearing her school uniform, and on her way to school among the morning commuters. Several other children witnessed the unprovoked attack on their friend. Finally, you disposed of incriminating evidence quickly afterwards. Turning to mitigation, despite the number of blows you struck to Elianne with the large knife, the wounds you caused were not grave except for the fatal one. The evidence indicates an intention to cause really serious harm. But this is a case in which the impact of a lack of proven intent to kill is close to neutral because of the nature of the weapon used and the fact of the chase and the repeated blows to a defenceless girl. I have in mind the definitive guideline which assists judges dealing with offenders with mental or developmental disorders and neurological impairments. Culpability, that means the degree of responsibility you have for your actions in killing Elianne Andam, may be reduced by the reason of any impairment or disorder you are suffering from at the time. But this only applies if there is a sufficient connection between the impairment or disorder and the offending behaviour. You were diagnosed with a neurodevelopmental condition, autism spectrum disorder, ASD, in July 2019. The testing resulted in a score of 7 out of 24, which is at the very threshold for the diagnosis. When you assessed again before the trial, your score was 9. By the jury's verdict, ASD had not substantially impaired your ability to exercise self-control when you killed Elianne. I have reminded myself of all the psychological and psychiatric evidence called at the trial. As well as ASD, you meet the criteria for a diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. And during your childhood, you displayed traits of conduct disorder, including aggression, which, if it persists, may emerge in adulthood as antisocial personality disorder. In my judgment, none of those conditions impaired your ability at the relevant time to exercise appropriate judgment, to make rational choices, including to control yourself, or to understand the consequence of your actions. Put simply, the psychologists and psychiatrists who reported to the court agreed that you have social communication difficulties which make it harder for you to respond normally to complex social situations. But the driver of this offence was not communication difficulties, and you were not, on the morning of the 27th of September 2023, in a complex social situation. In my judgment, the driver of your actions was your short temper and your aggressive tendencies, described by Professor Blackwood as personality issues over which you have control, combined with your deliberate decision to carry a knife. This is confirmed by the fact that you were not in an emotionally disturbed state when you were arrested. And by that point, you had phoned your friend Kay and communicated with another girl you had planned to see later that day. Furthermore, a consultant child psychiatrist who saw you after your arrest concluded that there was no evidence of any kind of acute mental disorder at the time. There is therefore an insufficient connection to be drawn between your mental health and this offence of murder. I do take into account as mitigation that you have no previous criminal convictions. I also take into account that you came to the attention of social services as a young child. You are the subject of child protection plans because you suffered neglect and other disturbing childhood experiences which caused trauma and interfered with your development. I have reminded myself of the guideline on sentencing children and young people because considerations of maturity, insight, and understanding do not end once an offender reaches the age of 18. From all the evidence in the trial overall, I find that your emotional immaturity is somewhat greater than that of a typical person of your age. And you are less able than others to express yourself and to understand the thoughts and feelings of others. You have not yet developed fully the ability to cope with your own strong feelings, such as those of worthlessness. These features provide personal mitigation. You have written to me to express remorse, and you say you hope to live a better life in the future as penitence for the very bad choices you have made. I discern from your letter and the pre-sentence report some positive indications that you are slowly gaining valuable insight into your responsibility for your actions and the capacity you have to change. You are still young, and despite what you have said and written in the past, your life has value. It is up to you to make it as good as possible. After carefully weighing and balancing all the significant features of the case, I come back to 23 years as the just minimum term. As that minimum term must represent the time you actually spend in custody, I deduct the 531 days between your remand and today's sentencing hearing, which counsel have calculated. If that figure needs amendment, the case must be listed as soon as possible for it to be done. All the medical reports served in the trial, together with the pre-sentence report and a copy of these sentencing remarks, must be passed to the custodial setting where you will be placed after this hearing. Stand up, Hassan Sentamu. You have taken the life of a precious child. You have devastated the lives of those who knew and loved Elianne Andam, a bright, kind and loyal 15-year-old on her way to school with her friends. The responsibility for Elianne's death will be with you for the rest of your days. The sentence is detention at His Majesty's pleasure. For the murder of Elianne Andam on the 27th of September 2023, you will be detained for at least 23 years, which means, after counting the days served so far, a minimum term of 21 years and 199 days. For the offence of possession of a bladed article, a category A1 offence in the relevant guideline, the sentence is 1 year concurrent to the life sentence for murder. You must go down now.
Elianne's unfortunate death sent shockwaves throughout the community and beyond. Vigils were held, flowers piled up near the scene, and her name became a symbol of just how urgent the issue of violence, especially against young women, has become in the UK. I'd like to say RIP to Elianne Andam, and I'd like to offer my condolences to her family. I sincerely hope something like this never ever happens again. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as it really helps the growth of the channel.